Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Hugs, and I'm back with another YouTube exclusive. You'll have to pardon the hair. This is what happens when I can't get to a barber during quarantine, and I just hop out the shower. So it is what it is. The thing I want to talk about today is Wi-Fi tournaments and whether results should count, or not just Wi-Fi, but online tournaments, as opposed to LAN. And I mean for any game, not just Melee, not just Ultimate. Talking any kind of game. Fighting games in particular is what I mean, because those types of tournaments typically take place on LAN. They take place in person. We run tournaments online, but those are kind of like secondary. But now, in the situation we're in with the quarantine, it's kind of become the mainstay, at least for the last few months and possibly the next few months. So I kind of wanted to give my thoughts on how I look at them, how I look at results, and things like that. So I think the most important thing to understand from the gate is that Wi-Fi tournaments or online tournaments are, in a way, completely different games with some overlapping strategies, but the strategies that are valued within the an online game versus an offline game can be different, right? And the way I explain valuing strategies is, so for example, there is a skill in perfecting the use of items. There's no doubt about it, right? So when people say, using items takes skill, so we should include items in, let's say, Smash tournaments, it's incorrect to assume that just because it takes skill, it's something that we should test in a tournament. A tournament could have its own criteria for what skills it wants to test. And we decided as a community that the skills that are required to be good with items are not the skills we want to test. We would rather test, spacing and conditioning, or technical execution, etc., and not necessarily your knowledge on 50 different items, or your ability to stay composed when you're in the middle of a combo and a pill falls and blows up and then you die. And obviously it would be a skill to take that and just be like, oh, awesome, I am so zen, I can still handle this. But it's not a skill that we want to test, right? In the same way, Wi-Fi or online play, I'm going to keep calling it Wi-Fi because I mostly hear Ultimate players complain about it, because Melee players kind of are okay with net play for the most part, so I don't really see a whole lot of anger towards it, but I mostly hear Wi-Fi in my head when I think online. So if I keep saying Wi-Fi, just understand that that's why. But they kind of value different strategies that are going to be a little more effective in Wi-Fi than they will be online. Let's say that someone like MK Leo values reaction a whole lot in live tournaments, right? So at a live tournament, this guy is just reacting on point, frame perfect, killing it, right? Covering all kinds of options because he's reacting to everything, right? Well, reaction will not be so valued on Wi-Fi because Nintendo's Wi-Fi is trash, right? So you can't rely on your own reaction the same way you would be able to on LAN. So you could adjust for it, and you could start doing something different in order to still win, right? So essentially, you're looking at what is necessary on LAN, and you're not just blindly applying it to what's necessary on Wi-Fi. You would still, some fundamentals are still there, right? But you would look at that and say, okay, since I cannot rely on my reaction time as much on Wi-Fi, then I got to start employing different strategies, which could include like a lot more preemptive strategies, right? Where in neutral, you act in ways that preemptively prevent your opponent from coming in, maybe, while staying like frame safe, essentially. You know what I mean? Like those are strategies that could work better online than they will on LAN. And that's totally valid, right? That's why I consider it a different game. It's totally valid. It's a skill. It's a different skill, but it's a skill. And it doesn't necessarily mean that one is more important than the other. I mean, right now you could argue that your skill in Wi-Fi is definitely more important now than your skill on LAN. You could see it in results, right? MKLeo's not winning the online events. Other people are. Now, what does that mean? Okay, what does that mean? I don't think that you can compare uh, players between the two types of games, right? You can't compare a person's abilities on LAN and say that beating him on Wi-Fi is the same thing, because that is absolutely not true. So, let's say you beat a player like me on Teams, right? I was teaming up with someone and you beat a player like me on Teams. I am traditionally pretty whack at Teams. I'm not good at it. I'm not great at Teams. So if you were to beat me and then you go and you tell your friends, because you're going to run into me in singles, right? And you go and you tell your friends, yeah, I played Hugs and I was kind of botting him in doubles, so I think I got a good shot. You most definitely probably don't have a great shot, right? Because they're two completely different games. And the skills that are valued in doubles are not the same skills that are valued in singles. They're two different formats. And that's kind of, yeah, that's how I would look at both of these. It's like they're two different formats. There's Wi-Fi format and there's LAN format. So when you take someone like MKLeo, inarguably the best player in the world at Ultimate, on LAN, and let's say you beat him on Wi-Fi, you cannot go around saying, I beat the number one player in the world, therefore I have a case to be considered one of the best players in the world. It's like, no. You might have a case for being one of the best players in the world on Wi-Fi, but it wouldn't be a case that is decided by beating players that are good on LAN. And now it could be. There are some players whose skills translate the same, maybe, or like similar. And MKLeo's still pretty damn good online, right? There's no question about it, but I don't think anyone would argue that it's the same. Like, clearly he is a monster on LAN, and clearly he could also learn to be a monster on Wi-Fi, but that's up to him. And I think he even tweeted saying that he decided against learning that, which is totally chill, right? So like I said, like, you beat MKLeo, best player on LAN, you beat him on Wi-Fi, that doesn't mean you beat the best player in the world, period. No, it means you beat a guy that plays a different format very well, and it doesn't, like, that value does not translate if you beat him on Wi-Fi. That being said, if you beat someone like Best Ness, who is amazing on Wi-Fi, if you beat him on Wi-Fi, then yes, that is amazing. Like, if there were separate Wi-Fi rankings, there was a panel and all that who got together and did something about it, well, then that win would mean more, in my opinion, on Wi-Fi than a win over MKLeo on Wi-Fi. But then if you beat Best Ness on LAN, it doesn't mean you beat, like, you know, one of the best top three. I'm not sure where I'd rank him on Wi-Fi, but it doesn't mean that you beat that same guy on LAN. It just means you beat Best Ness on LAN. You see what I'm saying here? So you got to look at it like two completely different formats to decide how to weigh wins or losses. So, like, I guess with all that, the big question is, should Wi-Fi tournaments and results count? Well, that depends. I think every win deserves credit, and it's up to us as a community or a panel or whoever even just cares and wants to just make these kinds of, you know, thoughts and ideas happen. Every win deserves credit, but you have to value it correctly. You have to decide how much does an MKLeo win mean on Wi-Fi. It doesn't, like, I'm not in the camp that says, you know, oh, you beat MKLeo on Wi-Fi, that means nothing. It's like, no, I try to look at it like, well, MKLeo on Wi-Fi is not as good as MKLeo on LAN, but it still means something because he's still very fucking good. So if you beat him, let's say he's like a top 20 player on Wi-Fi. This is just me throwing a number out. It doesn't mean anything. But if he is, well, then that's what that means. It means that you beat a top 20 player on Wi-Fi. Doesn't mean you beat the number one player in the world. Sure, it's a little bit of an ego stroke. Like, you're like, cool, I did beat MKLeo. I could say that, I guess. But it's an asterisk, and it's an asterisk that should count. So you got to look at it that way. You got to place the appropriate value on the wins and losses based on the format, and that format now being Wi-Fi. If people want to get together and create Wi-Fi rankings because we're kind of stuck doing it for a while, then go for it, right? I think that's a cool idea, even though um, it might make people mad. It might make people value one thing over the other. It's better to think about it that way than to just simply cross the results up and say, "Oh, you beat Tweak online. That means you beat top 3 in the world." That's not what it means. It's LAN and it's Wi-Fi. And I think just with fighting games in general, LAN will always be the dominant format, the format that counts for more, the format that people care about more. And that's just the way it is. And I don't think that's going to change. So, get your wins now while Wi-Fi is the format, and you could get your skills up in Wi-Fi and change it up and get good at that format, and then adjust again and get back into LAN when LAN starts up again once this whole quarantine is over. Yeah, so I guess summary, 2 different games with overlapping strategies that value different skills between the 2 formats. So some things work well in one format that don't work that well in the other, and vice versa. You shouldn't be comparing the skills of players between both. You should just look at the players' results within that format, and that's the value of a win or a loss versus that player within that format. And they should count. You can't discredit a win on Wi-Fi just because it happened on Wi-Fi, but it's a win that means something different in that it doesn't mean the same thing as a win on a LAN format. It's like winning a team's tournament or winning a different kind of, I don't want to say items because we all hate items, right? But it's like winning a different format, which is still valid. It's like winning a crew battle. It's like winning a team's battle. It's just a different format that deserves all the credit in the world, but you cannot compare players between the formats and say that it's the same thing. And there we go. That's this week's. Thanks for watching. I'll be coming out with more videos this week. Yeah, hope you liked it. Hit like, comment, subscribe. The shit that YouTubers say. And I'll catch you all next time. Peace.